since you mentioned being a resort town, do you make an intentional presence at like events and festivals and stuff like that with the community?
Yes, yes, we do a lot of events, a lot of festivals, a lot of working with, in our county, there's 5 fire districts, so we all work together really well.
Hmm.
For example, Veterans Day, we raised the flag between two of our ladder trucks. Us and East Grand do that joint stuff. We have a countywide training um, association that we all train together that way. And then our trainings are open to each and every person of emergency services, whether it be law enforcement or EMS itself.
Oh,
We
nice.
also like to do activities together when it comes to prior to meetings. Let's say we have a county chiefs meeting, we'll all meet before and have lunch,
Hmm.
and then we'll move forward that way. So it's like we kind of put that moment first before that meeting. So I think that's really important when it comes to all level and all organizations. But we're a very growing, fast growing community. A lot of construction going on all through the valley. So I think that we're going to see the area change, and I think in Colorado we're going to see things change. But I think building those relationships and having those moments prior to that is super important when it comes to those communications. It's a lot easier for me to go and talk to someone when I already have met them and have that conversation before we have to work through that incident. So I think that's important.
Oh yeah. And how important to me, I see that as self-care too, for the organization, right? Of having good relationships with other agencies, having a community presence, not just on the emergency scene, but like out and about too. People still, it gives you that little good feeling dopamine hit of like, giving that good reputation. And I you when I was doing my research on you, full transparency, I asked a friend who's in the fire service, who is really popular. I said, who is very influential? And that's how your name came up, Mike. So I'm curious of what your thoughts of influence and self-care. This all kind of ties together of,
Mhm.
how do influence and self-care play together?
I think it's easy for folks to say, well, I try to lead by example,
Hmm.
right? And I don't really feel that I'm not an example. I'm not trying to get people to be like me. I'm trying to get people to be like themselves.
Hmm.
And so like my challenge to myself is just be a better person. Do good. Be that person. And I think that by being that person, you tend to just influence others by trying to be that person. Um, I have been truly to be transparent is not being accused of anything, but more or less, I'm 6'5", 298, very animated guy, not shy.
Hmm.
So, sometimes people say, well, you're going to carry the room anyway, or, you're going to influence what's anyway because of who you are. And so I try not to come off that way. And I truly try not to be that person, but I think having that influence on others and being able to show them a pathway and not always the right pathway. I think
Hmm.
that as leaders and as educators, we always are like, oh, you should do this, or maybe this will work. But shit, man, we don't always do that. We're human, and I think that I used to laugh and tell folks, I go, hey, if you want to know the rough and the rocky path of the fire service, just ask me because I took it, So, but but yeah, I think and I think that the influencer, if you will, or the person who is influencing other has to be really, really careful
Hmm.
because you guide the path of folks with sometimes just your words and your actions. So I
Hmm.
think you have to know to yourself that, hey, um, you might not want to be on that pedestal, but folks
Mhm.
have put you on that pedestal and you shouldn't come off it.
Mhm.
So you're automatically signed up for a higher level of dedication, a higher level of humility, a higher level of learning when it comes to that, because one, you're in the position, but two, folks have put you in that position. There's a lot of folks that are in that position that don't know it.
Mm.
You know, there's a
Mhm.
lot of folks that, I mean, there's mentors of mine that when I say that you're my mentor, like,
Mhm.
no way, you wrote my letter. I'm like, yeah, but you're my mentor. I mean, I have a good friend of mine who's a lieutenant, and he'll talk to me all kinds of ways, and I like it.
Mhm.
And I need it, you know, like, I mean, I need that person to be like, you know what, you probably shouldn't have said
Mhm.
that. So, but I think that for me, um, over the years, where a lot of folks ask me to speak on, you know, leadership and stuff like that, or being human, being humble, or it's just because I got something to say, and because at one point in my career I wasn't, and,
Mhm.
and I think that a lot of leaders and bosses or managers, however, what classification you consider yourself, are scared to open up to that, or not. I wouldn't, maybe not scared, or maybe hesitant.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I'm the leader, stand up in front of you and cry and be like, boy, I messed that up bad, you know. But then I've swung the pendulum the other way too, where they're like, you know, Chief, can you just make a decision?
Mhm. Yeah.
So you got to find that middle that middle ground, and then you have to embrace it. And I have embraced where I'm at. I've embraced how I lead, and I embrace my mistakes. So I think that's why some folks around Colorado or other states I get the opportunity to talk in, maybe enjoy that. I don't know. I think that'd be I never really thought of myself being that way. I always thought to myself, man, I talk a lot and I have something to say. So people just go, hey, we'll get him because he'll say something. So,
Well, yeah, and I think that's kind of the paradox of influence, is that I think when you try for it, you often will miss the mark, right? If that's your intention, but if that's not your intention, if you kind of, like you said, if you're humble, if you care for yourself and you just own who you are, like that is the most influential thing you can do, I think. And so especially nowadays, because it is scary sometimes to own up to ourselves and what we enjoy and who we really are, and to be to be brazen with that. So um I like that point, but that is, yes, I mean, and it's the feedback that we got from the conference. I wasn't kidding. You were, one of our favorite talks at the conference. So um
thank you.
and I was funny because to be honest, I was so annoyed with you with how many slides you had. I was like, Mike, I told you. But then, like, that human, you kind of stood your ground with me, and that human element that you brought,
Mhm.
where everybody else only had a couple of slides, that human element of seeing your family and seeing you fishing, like, it added to, like, it really, that richness um really added to your talk. So
Well,
yeah.
thank you. I appreciate it. And it was a great opportunity, and I look forward to more as we move forward with this subject and this journey, if you will. And yeah, you're right. Those were, and just for those that are not or didn't understand our stuff, it's like I had way more than she. She took some out. Don't get me wrong, you know. No, but yeah, and I know it wasn't flag driven, but some of those, like Jess said, those are super important to me. And so, like, it wasn't so much, fire stuff and all that stuff. It was more like my personal stuff. And so I hope folks can relate to that kind of personal side of me, and it means a lot to me. And I think I'm so in this part of my life is it's just so important because it should have been important a long time ago.
Mhm.
And I think that I had to learn that. I mean, coming from my family, I'm uncles at fire in the fire service, but my folks were, they had divorced when I was young, and so like for me, I was kind of used to like, my dad not being around or something like that. So I kind of felt like, well, they're okay. I'm at work. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, you know? And so then I had to learn that. And so I think right now in my life, I've put that first, and it's super important. And I think that it's not only me and my family, but I think each and every person has something that's important to them. Even if it, like, I talk to some folks that are in different generations that, like, I mean, I love my bike, I ride my bike, I ride. Well, that's great. Embrace that. Ride your bike, ride the shit out of it, dude. Go ride your bike, I mean, but love it, love whatever. And I think that as humans, that's our hardest part. It's like it's easy for us, maybe for some, but it's easy for us to love people, but it's hard for us to love things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to love things more sometimes. And I know that how people sometimes believe that you're not supposed to love things, but I'm not talking about always material things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I love the moment spending with my family. I love the moment when I look back on my boat and I see my wife, my kids. I love moments like that. Those are things to me. Those moments are things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to embrace things more to help us grow internally, so that will help our self-care overall, not only in our careers, but in life. Because if you're happy in life, then you're happy at work. Shouldn't
Bingo.
be work, shouldn't be a job. It should be like, I get to go tomorrow, man. I always laugh around here. I was like, guess what we got to do today? We went to recess. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, recess? It's like, yeah, we were on the training ground,
Mm-hmm.
and we were at recess. I was with all my friends playing. I mean, it's the best time ever. So, like, this guy's crazy.
No, that is definitely how I felt. I mean, I could not wait to get to training. I could not wait to get the call. I mean, I had the little scanner on the top of my fridge. When those tones went off, ooh, it was time to play. I don't care if, like, it was just fun. Yeah,
It was
fun.
fun. It was fun up until it wasn't. We
Mm-hmm.
all have that one person who broke us down the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, dang, that's how we're gonna learn this today, huh? So, what about this? Can I ask you a question about the conference? Or is
Sure,
this
yeah.
not the right platform for it?
Yeah, you can ask
All
me
right, perfect. So what would you change about it if you had to change anything?
about how the
The,
conference went down.
the overall conference.
I think I would have picked a different date.
Mm.
Just that wasn't because I found out mid planning, and this was my first conference. I've never pulled off anything like that. I only found out that that was the same day as another big competitor conference. I'm not going to say it on here, but
Yeah, it
I think
was.
that made a difference because that automatically, put me in this like David and Goliath kind of situation of
Yeah.
like trying to take on, something way bigger than I am. So, but other than that, I think it was awesome. I had such a fun day that day, and I saw it as play. I worked my ass off, and then that day was my fun day. Like, we had a good time, and I just
Yeah, it was good.
so yeah. So I think,
Awesome.
yeah, that's what I would change. But
Well,
I want to circle back real quick to self-care. Let's kind of close this out with self-care and tying it all together, because you have a lot of professional contacts, and you've been around, Mike. You've seen, a lot of different departments. Do you think firefighters are getting better about self-care? Do you think we're headed in the right direction?
yes, I think we're headed in the right direction. I think leadership across the fire service is wanting to learn more, doing more, helping folks not only professionally but personally more. I think that where we start to kind of fog the process is where we pick and choose what the self-care is.
Mm.
For an example, some folks say the physical aspect of it.
Mm.
Well, self-care, yeah. Well, we have to work out every day for an hour. That's our self-care.
Mhm.
But I think there's another component of it. So I think that we just have to broaden and look at it this way compared to this way. It's like, oh, we do self-care, we have EAP, we have this and that, we make them work out. But what does it look like out here? And I think that there should be different avenues. And there's and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of departments out there doing their thing, but I think future-wise down the road, that departments are going to open up what the definition of self-care is. Like, I think a huge um, thing that happened over that wasn't there before that happens now that I learned about it at our organization not too long ago, that you can actually talk to your counselor and using your copay from your insurance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice.
And yeah, I think that's a huge, if you need some mental health or something like that from your insurance and that, you can actually just pay your copay and actually have that avenue. As well as if there's a lot of organizations, volunteer combination and career, that are part of VFIS.
Mm-hmm.
And VFIS has a family guidance program with EAP, with, counseling, all that stuff, free of charge to the folks. And I think that it's important for folks to have those pathways and have those avenues, but also promote that on the aspect, hey, you know what? I am not the expert. I'm here for you. I love you to death. I want you to be here, but here's some resources for you. You define your self-care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Compared to us or an organization defining self-care.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because this is a theme that came up with Chief Weisbaum as well, of the agency being like, we'll help enable you, we'll give you the tools, but you got to be the one to choose which ones are best for you and then go use them, because I think that also is where finding that balance between the individual and the organization, of ultimately it's each of our own responsibility, to get ourselves what we need, that's really, at the end of the day, that self-care. So if your department doesn't have it, you go find a resource where it is of what you need. So speaking of which, do you have a couple of resources for us today that you would like to leave us with for some self?
I do. I definitely have some resources, but right before we move that, I just want to circle back to that. Is I think that we also have to look at that the organization not checking the box. Like, hey, well, we have resources. Here you go. I think there's a follow-up component of that. For example, we have resources. Here you go. And then, hey, did any of those resources work for you? Is there any other resources that we don't have that we can help you with? So as a leader, I think we have to do that portion of it. I'm sure Chief Weisbaum and myself used to work together.
Yes.
So for me, I got two different resources that are super important that I think would help everybody, and they'll be in the link or the chat below, or just upload them. One is I have the reference right here. It is the Ohio Association of Professional Firefighters. They have a first responder self-care techniques. You can click on their website and it goes through different techniques of self-care and how to recognize that possibly that you might need self-care, or that there are certain steps or different resources that you can use within their website that might not be all you might not think is self-care, but it truly is self-care. And having that pathway to look at will help individuals, as well as a lot of those folks, especially if you're in fire-based EMS or any type of EMS, or you've heard of Pulsera or healthcare. Pulsera does a lot of different things, not promoting anybody, but they also have a website, and it's 10 ways a firefighter can support their own mental health. And that goes through different steps on what folks have done in the past and what some organizations recommend doing when it comes to supporting your own mental health. They cover stuff like sleeping. They cover stuff like eating that we just can't accomplish. There's certain things that, like, for example, I have never slept well. And people are like, oh, whoa, what's sleeping well? Is that like the 8 to 5? Because like I feel I sleep well, but according to society, I don't, because I get up at 3 and 4, sometimes 2 a.m. Like, what are you doing? You don't sleep well. And I'm like, well, hey, I didn't tell you I went to bed at 6 and 7. So there's plenty of rest. So So I would recommend those two sites. I mean, there's several other out there, but I think one is recognizing and having techniques. I think those are two different pathways and journeys the person could take. Recognize that you need self-care, and then what are those techniques that are going to help you? And if none of those work, find your own way, find what helps you as a person, because it will help you not only at home, but it'll help you at your job as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And thank you. And we will link both of those resources below. And Mike, do you have any closing thoughts for us of anything we talked about today that you just kind of want to sound off on as we kind of wrap up the conversation?
Yeah, I like to thank everyone and their time. I think it's super important to learn and keep elevating our knowledge, especially about subjects like this. I think if you took the time to log on and listen to some of these webinars, that you are in the process of doing your own self-care. I mean, you care enough about yourself to worry about yourself, to learn about yourself. So that's super important. So just remember those three things. And as you move forward, find what works for you, find your release, find what is the best steps moving forward in your open book to life. And thanks for the opportunity. I had fun. I always like talking with you. I always feel like I'm sitting here self-checking myself. Man, you talk too much. You should have said this. You should have done that. And so I appreciate the opportunity, and I am 100% on board with Firepower X, and I love your movement. So
thank you. Well, we appreciate it. Thank you. You're always so heartfelt, Mike, with your shout outs. And yes, I totally agree. I want to echo Chief Scott's sentiment here. Thank you for investing in yourself today and watching this webinar and making it to the end. And if you have any follow-up questions or comments or feedback for us, my door is always open to you. You can reach out to me at info@firepowerx.com. And in the meantime, we'll have all the resources mentioned in this interview below for you to access. And thanks again, and we'll see you next time for the next webinar.